Right, in the last session, we had seen the introduction to cardiac profile, why it is important, what are the 3 points there, three points of applications or uses that we can get out of performing cardiac profile test. We defined the cardiac profile test. We classified it into 4 groups. Each group evaluates each part. We had group 1 and 2, which was doing the risk evaluation for cardiac diseases. Group 3 was the cardiac injury panel, and group 4, protein biomarkers of cardiac injury. So group 3 was very detailed. We had seen group 3 in very detail, while group 1 was giving us information about the disturbed carbohydrate metabolism, and we checked for the renal associated markers, okay, renal function markers, because kidneys are the one which get affected first out of all other organ systems in a patient where the carbohydrate metabolism is not under control. Then we had direct risk evaluation. We checked the lipid profile of the patient. Again, always it is very important that we keep on listening that lipid profile and oils whenever we take it in our diet. It is directly associated with heart condition. Okay, more oils we take, it is said that it affects our heart more, and that is the theory behind why we are using group 2 test. Okay, a patient who has a higher lipid profile than normal has more risk of developing cardiac diseases. So that is the idea behind using lipid profile for assessment of risk. So group 3 was where we spent most of our time, because it is the area where cardiac injury panels were studied. So group 1 and group 2 are only useful when we are assessing the injury. Once there is a cardiac event happening in the patient, so group 1 and group 2 tests are not very useful. From that point onwards, group 3 tests are very important. So group 3 is a cardiac injury panel test. All the markers here needs to be performed together. So it helps us to assess severity of heart disease, follow the trend of the disease, determine post-operative risk in the patient. The tests include CPK and a isoenzyme of CPK called CKMB, AST or SGOT, LDH, and SHBD, where LDH and SHBD are very similar. Only difference is the time taken by the SHBD to come back to normal concentration. So creatine phosphokinase is increases fastest out of all the injury panel markers, increases within 6 hours, reaches a peak by 24 hours, and returns back to normal in 2 to 3 days. It can be made more specific by using one of its isoenzyme forms called CKMB, which is the best enzymatic marker available currently to assess cardiac injury. When we saw aspartate transaminase, the problem with aspartate transaminase is because it's a distribution throughout the body. Okay, in almost all organ systems, aspartate transaminase is present. So this makes it very non-specific marker for myocardial infarction, as it is distributed everywhere, and its increase can be associated to any of the organs AST is present in, not just heart. We saw lactate dehydrogenase. Again, it has the similar drawbacks of AST, but it has one advantage over AST is the isoenzyme form of AST. LDH. LDH2 is more specific for myocardial infarction, but LDH2 can only be assessed based on a semi-quantitative type of measurement. Either we have to do ultracentrifugation, which is not available in each laboratory, or we have to do electrophoresis, which takes longer time, and it will negate any advantage LDH as a hormone is, as an enzyme is giving for the assessment of cardiac injury. SHBD, again, we already told, it is sensitive. The only difference is it takes longer time to come back to normal. And this graph, a graphical representation that shows us why and which parameter is more specific and helpful in assessment of first cardiac injury event and second cardiac event as well. So next is some protein markers. Okay, in this class we'll be focusing on some of the protein biomarkers that can be used for assessment of cardiac injury or group 4 test. First is myoglobin. Myoglobin is a protein that is present in striated muscles, cardiac muscles, and the skeletal muscles. The role of myoglobin is similar to that of hemoglobin. As hemoglobin is known to transport gases in blood, myoglobin does the same function in striated muscles. Okay, so it's an oxygen binding protein in striated muscles. It's responsible for transport of oxygen from hemoglobin in the blood to the striated muscle cells. So increase in serum myoglobin levels occurs after trauma to either of these striated muscles. Okay. So once this muscle starts to break, myoglobin that is present inside these muscles will come out. So whenever the myoglobin levels will increase in serum, it can directly be associated to trauma or injury to either skeletal or cardiac muscles. Normally, myoglobin levels in serum ranges between 12 to 78 microgram per liter in males and 3 to 76 microgram per liter in female. Okay, normally it is in this range. However, high serum levels can be observed within 2 to 3 hours of pain. That is more than 90 microgram per liter can be seen. Here we can see a point. Okay, a very important keyword here is pain. It does not indicate that it is always cardiac disease only. It can be just be pain either in the chest or any other body part because myoglobin is present in both the striated muscles. Okay, so that is its disadvantage. Its presence in both skeletal muscles and cardiac muscles. As we all know, the concentration and amount of skeletal muscles are more compared to cardiac muscles. If something is more, okay, that will hold more myoglobin. So whenever myoglobin comes into the blood, it is always associated with the either skeletal muscles getting injured or there is a larger muscular disease than heart. So because of this disadvantage, we prefer to use myoglobin for supplementary analysis. Okay, it is a supportive analysis. It's not directly telling us about the cardiac injury. So it has certain advantages. So when the level starts to increase, okay, myoglobin level increases 3 to 4 times earlier than CKMB, one of the best enzymatic markers for assessment of cardiac injury. When we compare it to myoglobin, the level starts to increase 3 to 4 times. So there is a time gap. Okay, it can increase within 2 hours of cardiac injury. So it helps us for identification of cardiac injury faster than any of the enzymatic markers. If there is a negative result, we can exclude. Okay, we can exclude myocardial infarction as source of pain. So what we see whenever there is a myocardial infarction or an heart attack, the patient has chest pain. Okay, one of the symptoms of myocardial infarction or heart attack is pain. Okay, when pain happens and we do myoglobin, and if myoglobin comes back normal, okay, so we can exclude the source of that pain as myocardial infarction. We can remove it from our differential diagnosis. But it has certain disadvantages. This molecule has low clinical specificity. As we told, it's not very specific because of its distribution throughout the striated muscles. Cardiac muscles are compared to number of quantity is less than skeletal muscles. So it's very low specific, lowly specific clinically compared to other biomarkers. We can also expect some false positive results in other conditions. If the patient is suffering from renal insufficiency or injury to skeletal muscles, it's always gives us a false positive result. Not very useful as itself, but as a supplementary or supporting diagnosis, we can use it. The last biomarker of class 4 or group 4 test is serum alpha 1 acid glycoprotein. Okay, big name, don't worry. It has a very small function. Normal values range from 0.5 to 1.3 gram per liter in male and 0.4 to 1.2 gram per liter in female. Okay, increased serum levels have prognostic value. Now, here we come across a marker which is not useful at all in diagnosis of myocardial infarction. Instead, it has more prognostic value. But differentially, it is also increasing in coronary thrombosis. That's why it's not very useful as a diagnostic marker. But to check if the patient's condition is improving or he is responding to the treatment or not, serum alpha 1 acid glycoprotein is a very good marker. Okay, so that brings us to the troponin complex. Troponin complex plays a very important role in diagnosis of cardiac events nowadays. Okay, in clinical diagnostic, whenever we send sample to the laboratory and doctor is suspecting myocardial infarction or any other cardiac issues, troponin is always present. Okay, so troponin currently is the one of the highest or the top markers for assessment of cardiac injury. However, the picture is changing. Now we are getting BNP. Okay, anti-proBNP is there. Then one more marker is also coming into the market, which is more specific. But currently, troponin is widespread. Almost all the laboratories have facilities to check for troponin within the sample. So currently, troponin is the best available marker for assessment of cardiac injury in the laboratory. Okay. So overall, clinically, when we compare, troponin comes at around the second or third phase, because even now the radiological diagnosis of cardiac injury is the topmost method for detection of any injury to cardiovascular system. Tropomyosin, troponin is derived from tropomyosin. Okay, tropomyosin is a fibrous molecule that is present in striated muscles, both cardiac and skeletal muscles. So troponin complex contains 3 polypeptides of tropomyosin. Okay, troponin T or TPT, TROP-T. This binds to troponin as well as to other 2 troponins in the complex. Troponin I or PPI or TROP-I inhibits action of fast-acting myosin interaction and also binds to other 2 troponins. Okay. Troponin C finally, TPC or TROP-C is a calcium binding polypeptide. Now, because of this troponin C's non-specificity and its function to binding to calcium, it can be said that it does not carry much use in diagnosis of cardiac injury. Okay, so now within the out of 3 molecules in troponin complex, troponin T and troponin I plays a very important role in assessment of cardiac injury. Okay, so let us see cardiac troponins. Again, troponin I and troponin T. This is used for diagnosis of acute myocardial infarction and also useful in late diagnosis of myocardial infarction. Sometimes we see that patient does not experience any of the symptoms for myocardial infarction and it can be diagnosed quite late. Okay, because of this, there is possibility that other cardiac markers may give us a normal result, normal report. So cardiac troponin very useful for diagnosis, late diagnosis of myocardial infarction as well. It can also be used for risk stratification of patients to see how at what stage of risk they are in. It's also used for diagnosis of myocardial infarction. Serial sampling of troponin I must be required. Okay, at least for every 12 hours we have to do troponin because it is such a valuable marker in both diagnosis and risk stratification. So its role is completely utilized. Its function is completely utilized only when we do repeated analysis. Okay, so every 12 hours. So clinical, if you see the statistical value here, cardiac troponin T has a clinical sensitivity of 98.2% and clinical specificity of 68.8%. So before, so 98.2 is a very high sensitivity rate. It helps us to detect uh, the possibility of myocardial infarction in larger quantity and faster in clinical samples. However, a low clinical specificity leads us to something called as false positive results. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is even when cardiac troponin T gives us a high reading, okay, high reading, 60 only 68.8% of the time the patient might have undergone myocardial infarction. So low specificity rate, but it is fine because whenever there is a high cardiac troponin T, the immediate next step in diagnosis is either going for ECG or echo. Okay. Once that is done, it gives us a better indication of what is the cardiac status of the patient. So having a high sensitivity rate, when sensitivity rate is very high, it can lead to false positive results. So cardiac troponin being just a screening test. So it helps us to identify by either confirmatory diagnosis. Low clinical specificity is not a problem for cardiac troponin T. Okay. So positive cardiac troponin T helps us in identifying unstable angina. Patient's angina is chest pain at increased risk of adverse cardiac events. Okay. For determination, the samples must be collected 8 to 12 hours after the onset of event. So it's a small drawback here. Here, the time required to give a sufficient diagnosis. Okay, clinically correlating diagnosis, we have to wait for 8 to 12 hours of cardiac event. And normally it takes that much time from onset of disease, onset of heart attack to get diagnosed. So that's one disadvantage. For patients with acute coronary syndrome, measurement of both cardiac troponins is very important to identify patients with increased risk for adverse cardiac events. Okay. So generally, the troponin complex carries certain disadvantages. Okay, number one, elevation also occurs in many other conditions like myocarditis, coronary artery spasm, when there is uh, abuse of cocaine, cardiac trauma, pulmonary embolus. All these conditions leads to increase in troponin complex proteins. It can also elevate in patients with chronic renal failure. Okay, why is that? Now, uh, when the cells, mainly with skeletal cells, it reaches its life's end of lifespan, these cells will die. Okay, so the whenever the cell's lifespan is over, it will die. When it dies, cardiac troponins or these troponins will be released into the blood. So the only way it can be removed is through the kidneys. So a patient whose kidney has failed or a patient with chronic renal failure will fail or will not be successful in removing these troponins which are released from the dead cells from the body. So it remains in the circulation within the serum. When somebody collects it and tries to correlate with the chest pain that patient is experiencing, we might experience a false positive diagnosis based on this thing. So it's very important to exclude chronic renal failure from patient's diagnosis before cardiac troponin is taken as a diagnostic parameter. Finally, to the conclusion. What can we conclude? Assessment of cardiac disorder depends on selection of the right parameter. We have seen so many parameters here. So it depends on right parameter, and selection of this right parameter is also dependent on considering symptoms exhibited by the patient and his history. We simply cannot base just on the clinical side. We have to also focus on the history and the clinical presentation of the patient. Out of all the enzymatic markers, CKMB is better compared to all others because of its highly specific nature. Cardiac troponin complex helps us in diagnosis and prognosis of cardiovascular diseases. The diagnosis should be based on assessment of levels of different parameters. So what we are trying to say is, don't base your diagnosis on just one parameter. Okay, just saying CKMB to increase, don't say patient is having myocardial infarction. You have to focus on multiple parameters and base your assessment on the values we get from these parameters. And finally, to summarize, group 1 and group 2 are only useful in risk assessment. Enzymatic markers are commonly used for assessment of risk. Okay, out of all the markers, the sensitivity and specificity provided by the protein biomarkers make them the method to go in the future. Okay, NT-proBNP is there. The next one, which is very specific, highly sensitive marker. And with that, we end the session.